Hello everyone. Today I wanted to talk about a recent Criterion release. This is High Sierra, starring Lupino, Humphrey, Bogart, directed by Raoul Walsh. I recently put this on my premature 10 favorite releases from Criterion in 2021, having only watched the High Sierra. But having gotten through all the extras yesterday, this would be, if I was going to have a top of the list, High Sierra would come close to the top, if not the top. This is one of Criterion's best releases. It's really packed with supplements. The 4K digital restoration is absolutely spectacularly looking to me. I have untutored eyes for sure, but this is from a movie from 80 years ago. This movie looks like it was just filmed yesterday. It's just magnificent, and it's got a lot of great scenery in there. They actually were allowed to go on vacation, on location to the Sierras, and it really pays off in the look of this film. And it's a 2-disc set. Like as I say, loaded with extras. On the first disc, we have disc 1, we have High Sierra, and we have Here's Looking at You, Kid, which is about a 90-minute documentary, a biography of Humphrey Bogart, focusing on Humphrey Bogart's son, Chris Bogart, who was only 8 years old when Humphrey Bogart died. But it's a very comprehensive biography of where his stage role, Bogart's stage roles, his evolution into movies, into being the second-tier gangster at Warner Brothers, and extending past High Sierra and all the way to the end of Bogart's film career. This is really good, and we see a lot of clips. We see a lot of people talking who knew Bogart, including Lauren Bacall. Then we have another feature called Curtains for Roy Earl, and this is from 2003. And this explores the evolution of the gangster tradition, especially at Warner Brothers. Warner Brothers specializes in the gangster films. Cagney, Paul Muni, George Raft were the top level gangsters of this era. Then we have an audio interview with the novelist who also worked on the screenplay, W.R. Burnett. And Burnett, I think, I think it was Scarface. I think was based on his novel. Also, the Asphalt Jungle later. He specialized in writing novels. He wrote screenplays and novels, novels of crime stories. So although it's an audio interview, we get pictures, clips, drawings even of the films that Burnett worked on, drawings of him actually being interviewed. Really good. I mean, Burnett is, like many of novelists who were very acclimated to making movies, he is a terrific interview. Then we get an interview with historian Miriam Petty, and she's discussing Willie Best. And Willie Best was sort of like a black actor who was sort of the inheritor of Stepin Fetchit, a very stereotypical comic role. And Miriam Petty, a black film historian, she gives the context of Willie Best and his whole career. And he must have been very popular in 1940, because even though he's part of a small part of the interplay between the other characters, we even have an interlude where we just see Willie Best fishing. And it's all cringeworthy. I mean, there's no doubt about it. I mean, today, you wonder, how could audiences ever accepted that, even in 1940? Maybe not everybody did in 1940, but obviously Willie Best was popular. In fact, I remember him very well from the 1950s. He was ubiquitous on different television shows in the 1950s. And so that's disc 1. and that's, you know, we've only begun. This too has Colorado territory, and this is the 1949 remake that Raoul Walsh made. He instigated it. He went to Jack Warner and said, why don't we do High Sierra as a Western? Now, this is not a restoration. This is it just says new scan of a print, 35 millimeter print from the library that's in the Library of Congress. So no restoration. It's rough in a few spots. It's certainly nothing pristine like High Sierra. I would say 90% of it looks really good. And it's such a terrific action-packed, I mean, it's a terrific film. So I'm glad they even though it's not properly restored in total, and there are some, like I say, some rough patches in it, it's well worth watching. And on this disc, we get another full-length documentary called The True Adventures of Raoul Walsh. And this is written and directed in 2019 by Marilyn Ann Moss. And she wrote a biography of Raoul Walsh, a very in-depth biography that unfortunately my library system doesn't have. But this is, I mean, we get, and it's structured, I love the structure of this because we have an actor reading from Raoul Walsh's memoirs. You have to excuse the barking dog if the noise is coming through from outside. I live right outside of a small park. But in this documentary of Raoul Walsh, we get an actor reading from the memoirs, as if he were being interviewed. That works out really well. We get the full length of Walsh's career, which goes back to being an assistant. He was an actor. He was also an assistant to D.W. Griffith. Stories where Griffith sent him to Mexico to make a deal with Pancho Villa, to make a film about Pancho Villa, all the way through the end of his career. And very entertaining, very enlightening. Then we get a video conversation between Dave Kerr and Farron Smith Name, in which they discuss these particular films in some depth. And then we get the booklet with great art, Lupino, who gets star billing over Humphrey Bogart, and then on the other side, Bogart with his dog Pard, and we'll get to Pard in a couple minutes. And in this booklet is an essay by Imogen Sarah Smith, and you know, it's a great, everything she writes is really terrific. And then now we can get to the movies themselves. I'm not going to talk too much about movies. High Sierra is a very famous film, and it was the movie where Bogart gets his first real shot at stardom. He had been in They Live by Night, also directed by Raoul Walsh, also had Lupino in it. Lupino, I don't think they were in any scenes together though in that movie, but she was very sensational. She got sensational reviews, and so she was being promoted as a top star, whereas Bogart had a reputation as a second-tier actor. So the studio decided to give Lupino the star, even though the film is clearly, it's all Bogart, although Lupino is very good in it. It was based on this novel by W.R. Burnett, and John Huston worked on the screenplay. He wrote the original screenplay. It was meant for Paul Muni. Muni didn't like it. Burnett was brought on to write another screenplay along with Huston. Muni still didn't like it. Then George Raft was next up. Raoul Walsh was one of the few directors who didn't mind working with George Raft. He was hated by most movie directors and other movie stars who had to act with him. But luckily he turned it down. So Walsh went to Warner and said, Bogart can do this. You know, he'll be a tough guy. And and Burnett, he makes a distinction between gangsters and outlaws. And why were these gangsters so popular. Well, to Burnett, the gangsters were part of a widespread criminal organization. Outlaws like Dillinger, Bonnie and Clyde, Roy Earl were sort of outlaws. They were like independent contractors, and they were fighting against the rich people. And unlike today, in the Depression era, rich people were resented by average people. And it has a lot of great dialogue, which you can always associate with Huston. Novelistic structure to it. Again, Huston was almost always adopted a novel, and he was always pretty faithful to it. And of course, Burnett worked with him, so there was no problem there, and they got along really well together. So but it does have familiarity. It wouldn't have been that familiar in 1940, but it starts with a prisoner leaving jail. There's going to be one last score, then I'll go good. He's an outlaw with a heart of gold, even though he's an armed robber, and he'll kill people if they get in his way. And then we also, with Huston, you have a certain amount of pessimism. I don't think Raoul Walsh himself was much of a pessimist or a fatalist, but Huston certainly was. And so you get that kind of feeling right from the beginning, is everything going to go right here? And there's a dog called Pard who has a significant role in this movie, and he sort of is supposed to be a bad luck charm. And Pard is very cute, and he also, we learn in the supplements, was Humphrey Bogart's own pet. So we have spectacular locations, like I said, in the Sierra, Mount Whitney. There's a car chase without any music that's just absolutely amazing. And 1940 audiences must have been, climbing out of their seats. It's such an exciting chase scene. I mean, I imagine ho-hum to the high production values of today, but it's such a great looking film. But when we get to these outdoor scenes, it's just, it's like you're sitting on the mountainside watching all this action go by. And also with Huston and with Raoul Walsh, you get supporting performances. They're all going to be good. Every actor, in the studio era, but especially in Walsh films, and Huston, carried that on. Every character is very vivid and specific, and there's nothing wasted in any of these movies, and especially in High Sierra. And then in Colorado, Territory is really interesting in the way, especially if you watch High Sierra one day and you watch Colorado Territory the other, because the plot is familiar, and it's really clever the way they transpose the screenwriters of Colorado Territory transpose this story to the Old West. Joel McCrea is in it. I would say that the heist in Colorado Territory is far more clever and exciting than the heist in High Sierra. And in both movies, we get a good girl who really is kind of bad, and we get the bad girl who really is kind of good. Lupino playing that part in High Sierra. And in Colorado Territory, it's played by Virginia Mayo, who was in several Raoul Walsh's films. He really liked Virginia Mayo a lot, and I think she's at her most earthy and appealing character you'll see her in any of her movies, and she's playing the Ida Lupino part. Ida Lupino being far more poetic looking and acting, and Virginia Mayo more earthy and ready to do battle kind of character. So, but both very good. Joe McCrea is very good. They stuck very close to almost all of the film, the plot lines. Really, it's amazing how easily a crime movie could be transposed to a Western. So again, just a fantastic release, highly recommended. I'm going to be going through recent Criterion releases because of the sale this month, and because I have some time. I'm going to be putting them out pretty quick in case anybody's interested in what these films might be like, whether you want to buy them in the sale. I've got The Incredible Shrinking Man somewhere out there, somewhere there, and that's Ratcatcher. And my first haul, Criterion haul, will include, which I'm doing in a couple days, will include Cedric Rey's Debbie and the Melvin Van Peebles box set. So I'll try to get to those within the next week, 10 days, in case anybody's interested in watching a discussion of them as part of a decision of what. There's so many movies. I went in, I didn't actually buy anything. I just wanted to see what was in the, what they had set up for the Barnes & Noble sale in my local store. And I can't wait to get back, because now I really have an idea of what I want to get. And sometimes you go in this store and you just start buying, and I didn't want to do that this month. So I have a plan now, and I'll have probably 2 sale hauls to come, and quite a few videos hopefully in the next week, 10 days, covering recent releases. Okay, thanks a lot for everybody who managed to listen to me this far. I really do appreciate it. Comments are welcome. You guys take care.